Behind the golden glow of grand inventions lies a reality suffocated by soot. The 19th century brought progress, but also the gasping breath of a new era. Look into the eyes of those who built the modern world. Their tired gaze reveals a story of sacrifice hidden beneath the grime of the Industrial Revolution's fire. Cities like London and Manchester became the beating hearts of the empire, yet their streets were cloaked in a permanent shadow of coal smoke and cold mist. The relentless rhythm of the steam engine became the new heartbeat of humanity. It was a mechanical symphony that never slept, demanding more fuel and more souls. As the sun struggled to pierce through the heavy smog, thousands of labourers marched toward the iron gates, leaving behind the safety of their homes for toil. Every gear that turned and every piston that fired was a testament to human ingenuity, but the cost of this power was written in the thick air. There was no respite in the city of smoke. Every breath taken was a mixture of soot and ambition, fueling the furnace of a rapidly changing global landscape. The iron horse roared across the countryside, connecting nations and markets, but it also left behind a trail of blackened fields and exhausted communities in its wake. In the dawn of this new age, the individual was often lost in the crowd. They were the silent architects of a future they would never truly enjoy. In the heart of the factories, a generation was losing its innocence. Children as young as 5 were recruited to serve the machines that never grew tired. They were known as breaker boys, spending their daylight hours in the bowels of the earth. Their world was one of darkness, dust, and the crushing weight. Tiny fingers were the only tools precise enough to fix the machines. As one wrong move meant a lifetime of injury, yet the looms never stopped for anyone. There was no time for school or play. For these children, the alphabet was replaced by the clatter of shuttles and the suffocating silence of the deep mines. Sleep was a rare luxury snatched in the corners of the workshop. They lived and breathed the factory, their childhood sacrificed to the altar of industrial production. Strict discipline was the law of the land. Under the watchful eye of the overseer, fear became the primary motivation for these youngest members of the workforce. Beyond the brick walls lay a world they barely remembered. The green fields of England were replaced by the monotonous grey of the urban industrial landscape they inhabited. Every step was a hazard, and every hour was a struggle. This was the cheap labour that fueled the economic engines of the greatest empires on earth. The burden was too heavy for such small frames, yet they pushed on. Their sweat watered the seeds of a prosperity that they would never be allowed. These were the stolen years, a tragedy etched into the history of progress. A generation that grew up in the shadows of gears forgotten by the light. In the intense heat of the forge, the human spirit was tested against iron. The air was thick with the smell of sulphur and the deafening roar. 14 hours a day, the men and women became extensions of the machines. In the world of steel, the individual was reduced to a mere mechanical function. When the machines hummed, human dignity was forced to take a back seat. The relentless pace of production demanded a total surrender of the body and the mind. The environment was a literal hell of noise and heat. Every bolt tightened and every coal shoveled was a battle against the overwhelming power of the engine. Liquid fire flowed through the veins of the industry. It was beautiful and deadly, a constant reminder of the volatile nature of the world they had created. Hands that once tilled the earth were now stained with oil. These were the tools of the new era, worn down by the friction of endless labour. The scale of ambition was staggering, yet the human cost was often invisible. Great ships were built on the broken backs of those who laboured in silence. Safety was a secondary concern in the race for profit. One slip, one moment of fatigue, and the machine would claim another victim without even slowing down. Feeding the beast required a constant supply of fuel and effort. The furnace was a hungry god, devouring the strength of men to keep the city moving. As the whistle blew, the weary masses emerged into the cold night. They were spent, hollowed out by the machine, only to return when the bells rang. Beyond the factory gates lay the slums, where the air was thick with the stench of poverty. These were the forgotten corners of the industrial miracle. Families were packed into tiny rooms like cargo. Home was not a sanctuary, but a crowded shelter where the struggle for survival continued even after the work. In the quiet of the night, the weight of the future pressed down. Poverty was a constant companion, a shadow that no amount of work could dissipate. The streets were a labyrinth of despair. Disease and hunger were the neighbours who arrived uninvited, haunting the narrow passages where the sun rarely reached at all. For many, the only escape was found in the bottom of a glass. The harsh reality of their lives required a temporary numbing of the senses. Hygiene was a luxury the poor could not afford. Cholera and typhus stalked the damp corridors, taking the young and the old without mercy or any warning. Hunger was a silent predator in the slums. The crumbs of the wealthy were all that remained for the children of the workers who produced the wealth. Even the simple act of washing was a battle against the environment. The soot of the factories settled on everything, a constant reminder of their inescapable fate. Life was lived on the edge of extinction. Every meal was a miracle, and every day survived was a victory against the crushing weight of the urban. The elderly were often left behind, their years of service forgotten. In the city of machines, those who could no longer work were cast into the shadows. This was the heart of the empire, a sprawling landscape of brick and bone, a world divided by wealth, but united by the smoke that covered them. The gap between the worlds was an unbridgeable chasm. While some counted their gold in velvet rooms, others counted their bruises in the cold, dark factories. To the masters of industry, the workers were often just numbers on a ledger. Progress was measured in profit margins, not in the quality of human lives. The contrast was jarring and cruel. The same city that produced unimaginable wealth also produced the most profound and heartbreaking poverty the world had ever seen. Feasts were held while others starved. The revolution had created a new aristocracy, one built on the steam and sweat of the millions who served them. Those at the bottom had to find value in the things others threw away. Resilience was the only currency they had left in a world that valued. The two worlds existed side by side, yet they were light years apart. The beauty of the elite was supported by the ugliness of the industrial machine behind them. Power was concentrated in the hands of the few. From their high vantage points, the suffering of the masses was merely a distant and indistinct blur. The injustice was visible to anyone who dared to look. A world of luxury built by those who would never even be allowed to cross the birth was the ultimate arbiter of fate. One child was destined for leadership and letters, while the other was condemned to a life of labour and farm. The structure of society was as rigid as the iron it produced. Every stone and every beam was a reminder of the inequality that defined thee. These faces are the ghosts of our prosperity. Their names are lost to time, but their legacy is the foundation upon which our modern world was built. History often remembers the inventors and the kings, but it forgets the hands that turned the wheels. We owe a debt to the silent millions of. The struggle for dignity eventually found a voice. From the darkness of the mines and the noise of the factories, the seeds of justice began to. We have come a long way from the soot-choked streets of the past. The world today is cleaner and brighter, but we must remember the cost. The ruins of the industrial age stand as monuments to human endurance. They are silent witnesses to an era of transition that changed the human race. Our ease today was bought with their hardship. Every comfort we enjoy is a gift from those who had so little, yet gave everything they had. Rest comes at last to those who never knew it in life. Their toil is over, but the world they shaped continues to turn every day. Let us look back not just with pity, but with profound respect. The dark side of the revolution was the crucible that forged our modern identity. We stand on the shoulders of giants whose shoulders were often bruised and bleeding. Remember their struggle as you walk through the world they helped create. Honor the past to protect the future. The story of the Industrial Revolution is the story of us all, a journey from darkness into the light.